Good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you are. Welcome to the October 28th, 2021 version of the National Cyber Watch Center webcast series. Today's webcast, the creation of a Cybersecurity Ambassador Program and using it to promote cybersecurity skills during the pandemic webcast. We have with us Dr. Lori Sussman and a couple just business related items before we turn it over to Lori. And one is we are recording this. So if you don't want to, you don't want to show up in the recording or whatnot, you certainly can participate by asking questions via the Zoom group chat. Everybody's doing a great job of keeping themselves muted while others are talking. And please feel free to ask questions of Lori. Do you care, Lori, to wait to have questions at the end or throughout?
No, throughout's fine.
Okay, sounds good. And so best form for that would be the Zoom group chat. So please feel free to ask questions. We've run this series for about 7 years, and we typically run these webcasts the last Thursday of each month. They're an hour. This month was a little different, being National Cybersecurity Awareness Month. We did 3 webcasts, one on October 7th and one on October 21st, so last Wednesday. And you can go to the National Cyber Watch Center YouTube channel and find all of the recordings of all of the webcasts, including the ones on the 7th and 21st of this month. And we are recording today, and we will, once we clean it up, we'll make the recording available. We'll use the same registration system you all use to sign up to send out a message letting you know that the recording's available, and we encourage you to share that far and wide. So it's just a placeholder for our webcast today. I'm your moderator, Casey O'Brien. I'm the Assistant Executive Director and Co-Principal Investigator of the National Cyber Watch Center, which is a cybersecurity education and workforce development consortium headquartered at Prince George's Community College, which is in Largo, Maryland, near where DC, Maryland, and Northern Virginia sort of come together, and primarily focused on supporting higher education institutions in cybersecurity education and workforce development initiatives. And a big part of the services that we provide as a center is dissemination of interesting projects and works like Lori's. And so, we use various ways in which to do that. This, of course, is one vehicle, and then we'll promote this through our various channels and our networks and whatnot. So, but really, we're here to hear from Lori, who's the Assistant Professor of Technology and Cybersecurity at the University of Southern Maine. And before I turn it over to Lori, I want to point out that we run a number of programs at the National Cyber Watch Center, and one we've run for the past 4 years is called the Innovations in Cybersecurity Education Program, and it was designed to leverage the incredible things that the educators and students in our academic network of almost 400 2- and 4-year schools are doing, and try to put that together in an annual publication through a submission process where those submissions are adjudicated. And the main goal really being to try to not reinvent the wheel, and to, speaking of dissemination, really try to highlight these interesting, effective practices and programs folks are building, and things that, interesting ways in which educators are solving challenges. And so this year's program, we treated it as a special issue insofar as we picked a topic, and that was essentially, okay, the pandemic is upon us, and many schools had to transition to remote and fully online learning. And what were the challenges that you, the National Cyber Watch Center community, you faced, and how did you solve some of those challenges? And Lori's submission, which is essentially the title of this webcast, won the best submission for the 2021 Innovations in Cybersecurity Education program. So first off, congratulations, Lori, on that. And so I'll post a couple links at appropriate times, not to be distracting or disruptive in any way, Lori, to what you're doing, but to the publication itself, which we encourage you all to download, and just some other resources that may support the work you're all doing. So I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to turn it over at this point to Lori.
Thank you so much, Casey. I am just so delighted to be here today. And I do want everybody to know that this is absolutely a team effort. And so while I'm talking about the Cybersecurity Ambassador Program and I'm the talking head, we've got great faculty. My chair, Professor Mark Monin. I've got Dean Qualls, who is our leader for the College of Science, Technology, and Health. And then the graduate assistants, most notably Zach Levitt, who has been with me now for over a year. We all did this building the airplane in flight during the pandemic. And so I'm just representing that team. So I do want to publicly thank everybody who's been involved. So we'll go through kind of an introduction, give you a little bit of context about my background and myself so that you understand kind of the thought process that went into the creation of the program, a little bit about USM and how that informs the Cybersecurity Ambassador Program, talk about the pivots during the pandemic, and take questions at the end for anybody that we didn't maybe satisfy questions during the process. So I have kind of an unusual journey to academia. It started at West Point. I was one of the first women to graduate from West Point, the fourth class, and spent 24 years in the Army, retired as an Army colonel in the Information Technology Signal Corps. And so from there, I went to private industry. I worked at companies large and small. I spent 7 years at Cisco as an example, had my own company, was at Hewlett Packard Enterprise. Learned that in the private sector, big companies have politics, small companies have drama. That was all very helpful. And then as my post 9/11 GI Bill eligibility started running out, I decided that it was a time of transition for me, looking less at success career-wise and more at significance with my career and with my legacy. So I went back to the University of New England, which is here in Maine, got my doctorate, and have been teaching at the University of Southern Maine for the past couple of years. And here at University of Maine, in our cybersecurity program, we're wrestling with the same things that everybody who is a member of the CyberWatch consortium understands. We're wrestling with an increasingly connected world. Things are getting more sophisticated. Laws are getting much more vague and less applicable in the digitized world. And how do we prepare a workforce that has to secure an increasingly connected world? Because with that increasing connected world, we have an increase in cybercrime. And during the pandemic, and these are statistics from the Internet Crime Complaint Center that's run by the FBI. It's interesting to note that from just 2019 to 2020, during the times of the pandemic, phishing attacks, phishing, smishing, farming doubled. And similar top cyber crimes increased almost logarithmically. And so we had this tension of everybody went online, we have more cyber crime, we need workers, and yet to date, even before the pandemic, we didn't have enough cybersecurity expertise, cybersecurity workers. And yet Maine, just like the nation, was dealing with increasing losses, and particularly vulnerable populations were most hurt, looking at older adults over 60, looking at student populations, looking at veteran populations. And so going deeply into some workforce issues, we did a great deal of research that we were very fortunate to publish in the Cybersecurity Skills Journal here with the CyberWatch. about workforce demands. We were taking a look at the fact that, 10 years ago, there weren't that many cybersecurity specific jobs. In a very short amount of time, we've gone to almost 1 million cybersecurity workers, and yet we have almost 500,000 cybersecurity openings. And here in Maine, even though we aren't seen as critical mass or that California or Texas, the Carolinas, Florida, and other states might have, we still have over 769 jobs open. And so huge opportunities for people who want to reskill and go into a fast growing field. Because the demand for cyber workers is continuing to grow. And just looking at the Burning Glass information, there were over 6,000 jobs posted for New England alone for just security analysts, and they're going unfilled. And that's only going to increase over the next 10 years. And it's a great salary where the median salary is over $100,000 when in New England, the average median income is just over $35,000. And the field is showing the wear and tear of what's happening during the pandemic. The understaffing is increasing the threat to organizations. Burnout is a very real problem, and finding people with the attitude, the aptitude to grow in a profession that requires constant curiosity, constant retooling of your skills as things change becomes so important. So who's responding to this need? Well, everybody has to be responding. And NIST has done a fabulous job with its national initiative on cybersecurity education. And with the special publication, there was a special publication in the Cybersecurity Skills Journal, specifically around the workforce framework that we participated in. And we did some research in anticipation of this program for the Cybersecurity Ambassador to ask the field, what is it that's most important? And we got, technical is kind of table stakes, but we need to bring in people who also have robust non-technical skills. And so we were starting to work on the Cybersecurity Ambassador Program as a means to improve non-technical skills for our students who are getting the technical underpinning in the classroom. And so just a little bit about the USM Cybersecurity Program for those who are not familiar with it. Originally, we were part of a certified Center of Academic Excellence for Cyber Defense through the NSA program, along with University of Maine, Augusta, and University of Maine at Fort Kent. However, rules changed, and so we had to validate as a standalone university. And I'm very pleased. Again, a huge team effort. We were recently validated through 2026, and we are now part of the CAE institution map. So it just kind of bodes the rigor and the emphasis and the resource investment that University of Southern Maine has made in the cybersecurity program. We have more than 200 students in the undergraduate program, but we have 116 active in classes right now. And what we do is we kind of, if you think of a mental picture of our undergraduate program providing those entry-level workers into cybersecurity, with the graduate program, hopefully, educating that next generation chief information security officer. We are highly technical in our bachelor's program and very collaborative in terms of working with the computer science department and other departments to make sure that students have sufficient depth and breadth for that first job. Also, internships are required as part of our program in order for students to graduate. In the same vein, we started our graduate program And again, that the same kind of situation as the Cybersecurity Ambassador Program. Great idea. And we started to execute just as the pandemic hit. Luckily, we had envisioned the Cybersecurity Masters and Graduate Program as a fully online program. So we were actually very pleased to get a fairly robust first group into the Master's Program. And we have both a certificate as well as the full Master's Program. And we find that the people interested in the certificate are coming from adjacent fields. We have a number of students, for example, coming from law who want to be cyber legal experts. And so they're coming in and getting the certificate as part of our program. We have a few from the healthcare and other fields where expertise in cyber is becoming so important. Our master's program, again, it has fundamentals of cybersecurity and enough fundamental underpinnings for students that are making a pivot from other fields, maybe computer science, maybe technology, but we even have students coming in from law enforcement. And so we provide enough technical for them to be conversant and be able to be credible. But at the same time, we also want to get those policy and management and important kind of operational classes so that they can perform that middle and upper management role in organizations. And yet, going back to we don't have enough workers, we wanted to take a look at how do we optimize and get the maximum number of talented people into the workforce. And so one of the things that we looked at is, are we getting representation from every population? And the answer, sadly, is no. When you look at Maine's computing sciences bachelor degree programs, and that includes cybersecurity, among other technologically bent bachelor programs, there's been a decline from 26 to 21% from 2016 to 2019. There's some good news in that the women population has gone to an uptick of almost 20%. That's good and bad news, though. If you think about the fact that women make up more than 51% of most university populations, only having a 20% representation in computing science, and it's even smaller in cybersecurity, means that we're not getting the talent that we need coming into this field. There's also challenges to minority graduation. In Maine, 2016, 83.3% of the computing sciences graduates were white. Now, the minority graduates have improved to about 26%, but still, when you look at the fact that 60% of computing graduates were white nationally, we're still far below the national average, and there's more that we can do to increase people of color and women into cybersecurity. So one of the things that we looked at to answer the challenge, both about non-technical skills and also a program that would help historically underrepresented populations, was the Cybersecurity Ambassador Program. And we have yet to do a rigorous view of the numbers, but we found that students that didn't have anglicized names, students that were of color and women, did not seem to get internships at the same rate as men. And right now I'm going through the institutional review board process to get my research approved so that I can start looking at those numbers in a more systemic way. But just as a professor who is advising hundreds of students, I found that these students of color, these women students, were not getting internships, and it was exacerbated during the pandemic. And so that became a challenge for them because they couldn't graduate without an internship. So we went out and working with the Maine Office of Securities. They wanted us to do some research about vulnerable populations in Maine and how to help create community awareness with those vulnerable populations. And we thought, wow, this is a great opportunity to get internships funded where we have our cybersecurity students go out into the community, provide that service, and get their internship at the same time through the department. So we did a pilot with 2 cybersecurity ambassadors. We got the grant in January, and then in March, we had the COVID hard stop. And I think many of you who are faculty and staff saw similar messages around the March 2020 timeframe, which was, we are making the pivot to all online, and any students who are working, whether they're federal work study or on your department internship, everything was a full stop. And so the undergraduate students who were starting to kind of get rolling and help us with the curriculum development for the ambassador program, we basically got about 6 weeks of work with them after onboarding, and we had to stop. And so, the lemonade from that lemon was that we did get kind of 6 weeks of data about what we were doing and what we were trying to accomplish as far as getting students prepared to do in-person workshops with folks. And then we were kind of thinking about our new reality, which over the summer was, think about if you're going to have federal work study students or interns, think about how you're going to do that remotely, because we really, want to the largest extent possible to have remote and safe programs for students. And we really thought about this, and we said, first of all, if you're in cyber, my time at Cisco was kind of the tale of where I spent 7 years working out of my home office. For me, being fully remote was nothing new. And we knew that in order to prepare them, these students to go into private industry, they would have to be able to work remotely too. So we decided that this was a great way to help them have some skill sets for that first job. But we also decided to expand the program to both federal work study and interns, because federal work study students were having a terrible time trying to find positions in order to work remotely. And so we thought, okay, well, the ambassador program is a great way to do that. But we had to kind of transform and think about the online modality differently than our thoughts when we had a program in person. Originally there was a lot of in-person meetings. There was time together in the library. There was time together putting together workshops. And now we had to change the pedagogy for this online modality. And the biggest challenge was that balance between trust and accountability. We didn't want to be oppressive, and yet at the same time, we wanted productivity, because these students were receiving $13.15 an hour. I had to respond back to the sponsor and let them know that they were getting value for their money. So the Maine Office of Securities graciously extended our grant. We started with a graduate assistant coordinator, 2 federal work study students that first term while we were waiting for the grant to be extended. And then in the spring, we piloted our intern curriculum with 3, we started with 4 interns, then went to 3 interns. And we had great success with a different kind of program where we tiered skills, knowledge, and abilities and, gave students specific tasks to do in order to qualify to a next tier. And this year, we have expanded to 2 graduate assistants. We continue to expand the federal work study students. We have 3 interns this fall. We're projecting 4 for the spring. So this goes back to some of the work that I did as far as knowledge, skills, and ability that were important to the field. And I was, again, lucky enough to be able to publish in the Cybersecurity Skills Journal on the workforce. I had the real privilege of talking to more than 50 professionals, all the way up to the Chief Information Security Officer of a Fortune 5 company, down to a person who was a security analyst. And we talked about non-technical skills and the importance of leadership, communication, of collaboration. And we put all of those careabouts into the Cybersecurity Ambassador Program. So what we did is we think in terms of competence, confidence, and then leadership. So the entry level, bronze level cybersecurity ambassadors spend time learning their craft very well. We have them do at least 10 article reviews, and then take those article reviews and further synthesize them into a annotated bibliography that is a specific theme for that particular term. So fall term, we're doing social media, cyber safety. Next term, we're going to look at identity. And they also have to learn 4 workshops. These workshops right now are delivered completely online to different organizations. And so they each have to master a phishing workshop, an identity theft workshop, a social media safety workshop, and a home cyber safety workshop. And they have to understand the content for a general audience, and then we have them tailor it to specific audiences, and they have to do at least 2 to move up to silver. At the silver level, they start to mentor bronze students. They have the confidence in the literature. They've, at this point, done all 4 workshops and even conduct lunch and learn sessions. For example, one of our silver cybersecurity ambassadors is teaching the others how to use Kahoot so that we can have interactive opportunities with participants using kind of a gamification to teach these 4 topics. And then at the gold level, we have coordination, leadership opportunities for silver and bronze students. And we have some swag for them. At the entry level, they get their cybersecurity ambassador polo shirt so they can present well, and a cap. At the next level, we have a t-shirt and a watch cap. And if they hit the gold level, we've got this really nice hoodie. And the students seem to like our swag. And I think it's been very, very important to them to kind of be able to show, their cybersecurity ambassador level. We've also embedded it in Zoom, so their level is broadcast as a Zoom background. And in addition to that, there's micro badges that they put on their email. So all of those things have been working towards, one, branding the ambassadors, making it an interesting and an exciting thing. And we've gotten a great pipeline of students interested in joining the team. And so we've done outreach with several organizations that cater to older adults. We've actually done the CS Connected was with the University of Maine, Orono. It was an orientation with higher ed students, and very well received, getting these workshops from their peers. We have done K through 12 with the Southern Maine PATHS program that has a at the high school level, a cybersecurity acceleration program. We're helping some nonprofits like the Maine Rental Association. We're talking to Preble Street to help with veterans. I have the honor of being one of Governor Mills, who is the Maine governor's. I'm one of her 11 veteran aide-de-camps. And so we'll be presenting to the governor next quarter about what we can do in terms of outreach to other organizations. And I'll be presenting some of this curricula innovation to the ATME conference, which is the Association for Technology Management and Applied Engineering. And we're building partnerships. We want to do this in a way that can sustain over time. We do have great support from our dean, who has given us funding through the Maine Economic Initiative Improvement Fund, MEIF, as well as the Maine Office of Security. We're working with the company GWI, which is a broadband provider here in Maine. They're sponsoring 2 interns this spring to expand our podcast and video content. We have a grant in with the Maine Technology Institute. I'm very excited about that. That will continue the public-private partnership and expand from 2 to 4 interns each term for the next several years. We're also working the check marks for the National Science Foundation. For those of you who have tried to get an NSF grant, you know it's not easy. So we tried with that. We got some great feedback. So even though we got the red check mark, we got great feedback, and we're continuing to press that area to get sustained funding for the program. And we're working on our outreach through the National Digital Equity Center in Northern Maine, as well as the Maine Literacy Organization, to virtually do more workshops in an expanded way. So as we mature the program, we want to expand with these organizations that have been very supportive. And I'm very, very proud of the student scholarship. This term, we've had 87 articles. We are finishing up the social media annotated bibliography and hoping to have all the students on that article and get that published. And then we'll be finishing up the phishing annotated bibliography. And then again, as I mentioned, we've got some support from our department to have the equipment to do video and podcasting. So the students are doing some scripting now, and very excited about expanding that next term. So the students have provided feedback, and the areas of positive relationships with customers, facilitating teams, improving their leadership and presentation skills, improving their writing skills. That was a really critical area that many folks in the field felt that our students just didn't have enough skill at doing. And so we find that doing the article reviews is really helping in that area. Working effectively with their peers, doing so ethically, and being able to train non-practitioners. We have really seen the students progress over time. And again, once I get through the IRB, we plan next term to start tracking that more rigorously and hoping to publish our findings in the next year. But we do have success indicators right now, and that is that our federal work study students are getting hired as interns very quickly at higher rates, especially for the students who are of color and female. We have had our interns hired very quickly after graduation. The inquiries for the workshops that we provide, despite the pandemic, are growing, and we're getting very good participant satisfaction from those that we've provided these workshops. And this is just a list of the publications that we're doing. The top one is the conference paper that will be going with the ATME conference, which is next week. And then the two about exploring non-technical skills, just the continued effort to understand what the field wants and make sure that we roll that into the curriculum and the pedagogy. And subject to questions, that's what we're doing. We're very excited about the program. It is definitely a team sport, and we are just delighted to be recognized by the CyberWatch Center.
Thank you, Lori. While folks get their questions together, I had a few, and these are in no particular order. I'm curious, what was your university doing with online learning prior to the pandemic?
Oh, I would say that, for the University of Southern Maine, I think that in technology, we were probably 90% in person and about 10% online. We have a program where we offer as a heartbeat some of the core classes online and then in person. But we found the pivot to 100% online to really challenge our pedagogy. You can't just get into an online situation and filibuster students. So you have to start creating programs that are interactive and accountability assessments that drive accountability, but are not, kind of getting away from the test regurgitation and testing kind of thing, and getting more into papers and projects and creating artifacts that will be useful. Does that answer your question?
It does. Yeah. No. So it was a real big pivot for you all. You said 90% of your instruction was face-to-face. So it was a, real significant pivot,
right?
To do so quickly too, right? On top of it.
Absolutely. And then, for this intern program and with the federal work study, that had been 100% in person. And so now creating a remote program was a change in the thought process for the whole administration, for the faculty, administering these programs, and for the students themselves. And so, having them as part of this program, they are much better teammates going in. We've got a number of great companies like IDEX, Tyler Corporation. We've got Defendify and others that have our interns. And they find the students are really self-starting because they're in this program and they learn to be driven by the tasks they need to be doing, as opposed to someone over their shoulder saying, okay, great job, now do this. So in some ways, this pivot to online and having to be part of a virtual team has really helped them be more ready for the technology workforce.
It's interesting. Thank you for that. There's a
Sure.
question from the participants. It looks like funding is the first step. How do you start?
Funding is very much the first step. And so we were very lucky that we had that Maine Economic Improvement Fund, the MEIF. And so my dean gave me about $15K to start the program with that. And a lot of it is just getting out as faculty and getting the brand known. So for example, I was on a panel about cybersecurity with the chief operations officer for GWI, and that led to a conversation where they started to fund interns. He led me to the Maine Technology Institute to get the additional 2 years worth of funding. That led to conversations and collaboration for National Science Foundation for people who are more adept at doing grants than I am. So a lot of this is, again, going back to I've learned that academia is a team sport, and getting out there, doing presentations, letting people know what the possibility is. And we know it's about $4,000 per student per term at 13.15 an hour, which is a wage that is comparable, but better than flipping burgers. And so we want them to make enough money where they're not enticed to go out and flip burgers or do other jobs, which those are perfectly fine jobs. But when we want to produce more cybersecurity workers, we want to get them into cybersecurity kinds of jobs. And, going back to my earlier point, we had a number of students who were international students, students that had Middle Eastern kinds of names. They were having particular problems getting past and into interviews for internships, more so than students with anglicized names. And so we found that this Cybersecurity Ambassador Program has been a boon for them to get an internship, get cybersecurity on their resume, and have some additional skills, credibility, and sponsorship from myself and the people that I bring in that help support the students, and that's helping them get jobs. There are some unconscious bias in the workforce, and we just have to help bring that to people's attention so that really fantastic students of color, fantastic women students can get jobs.
Excellent point. Sure is. I love the levels of the ambassador program, bronze, for example, and right, the three different levels. I'm curious, how did you determine what content areas you would focus on at each level? So for example, like bronze had phishing and identity theft. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, one of the things that we learned when we did the initial pilot was we wanted the students to do all four all at once. And we just found that it was too much, that even though the students get a lot of content about those four areas, they are not expert enough to be presenters, nor do they have the confidence to be presenters until we really immerse them in the content through the work on the article summaries. And so we find that usually there's two areas that they can get immersed in and do well in and feel confident. So we just scaled it back, and we started with phishing and identity theft because those are the most prevalent areas, and then working on social media and the home cyber safety, which can be a little bit more complex.
I see. Yeah. So the biggest sort of attack vectors or threats, right? Help to some degree drive the content areas for the different levels, right?
Absolutely. Because they were more confident in those areas, they had more connection and they had more experience with those two areas. And so they could focus a little bit more on learning the fundamentals of presenting well, as opposed to worrying about memorizing content.
Yeah, sure. Great, thank you. There's another question from one of
Mhm.
our participants, and he says, I'm interested in the article reviews. What is the incentive for the students? Have you developed guidelines for those articles?
Yes, we have a template, and so basically the template asks them to summarize what was the major goal of the particular article, of the research in the article, who were the participants, what were the outcomes, and then what were the major takeaway points, and why should we include this article in our annotated bibliography. So again, we go through the annotated bibliography exercise, and the students' incentive is that they're going to get published. So we all work on this together, and it becomes a publication collaboration between myself and the students of that term. And
Interesting.
so they, we try to limit the number of articles to 20. They read the articles to develop a framework for the annotated bibliography. We have a little bit of a framework in terms of we want to tell a story. So for example, the social media annotated bibliography, we wanted to tell the story of the increased urgency during the pandemic for the increased threat to children during the pandemic for social media. And so we then focused the work on that. And part of that is the students know that the upcoming outreach programs that we're doing will be with those constituencies. So we're going to be doing some things with paths, the K through 12. So it's good to know what those people are up against. So we try to focus the annotated bibliography on some of the clients that we're going to see, which is an incentive. Being published for these students is an incentive. And they're all cybersecurity majors. So we try to pick something that's kind of interesting and topical, and we talk about it. And I think the fact that we all talk about, the articles, what was good, what was bad, and their peers express interest, really seems to keep everybody going.
Hmm. Thank you for that. And there's a follow-up to that, which is how is the annotated bibliography used?
So the annotated bibliography is used in two ways. One is that we hope to publish it, but the second way is that we use that as a training tool for the next cybersecurity ambassadors. So the next cybersecurity ambassadors will be reading these annotated bibliographies and the associated articles with them to kind of look at what right looks like as they prepare to do their own.
Interesting. Since we're talking about this intersection of research and students and helping students develop some research chops, there's a shameless plug here for a couple of things, but you'd mentioned one of them earlier, and that's the Cybersecurity Skills Journal. And this was launched by the National Cyberwatch Center 3 years ago. It's the long name is Cybersecurity Skills Journal Practice and Research. And practice is flipped, right? Oftentimes it's research and practice, but practice comes before research in this case, because the goal of this journal is to really start to document evidence-based practices, which in our opinion is really sorely lacking in the proverbial we community, right? Industry, there's very little in the way of standard operating procedures and guidelines, and what are things that organizations are doing. You mentioned diversity initiatives, right, and statistics, and trying to increase a diverse workforce. Well, what are things that people and organizations are doing that should have evidence that they're working, right? And that's an example of the kinds of things that the Cybersecurity Skills Journal is trying to sort of unearth and document. And you had a publication in the special issue that came out in November 2020. And I encourage folks to look. I posted a link in the Zoom group chat to the special issue specifically, but there's more information on the Cybersecurity Skills Journal. And it's one thing I would note in terms of students is, one thing that makes that journal different is that it's developmental in nature. So it's really designed to help academic folks, even practitioners who perhaps haven't thought about research or aren't as confident in doing research, to actually bring an idea to publication. So that's one way it's different. There's a panel of peer reviewers that will work with authors, including students, to bring ideas to fruition. But if that seems like a bridge too far, especially for students, we're experimenting with what we're calling research notes. And so research notes could simply be, well, I have this idea, and I don't know if I can, I don't know if I have enough to fully flesh it out into a published article in a journal publication. So, but I've got some elements around it, and so we can provide a way for folks to do what we're doing today, right? Which is to have a discussion, do a presentation, and then take that and churn that discussion into a note. And so I encourage you all to, especially the educators who want to give students more research-like experiences, to obviously look at the stuff that Lori's doing in her program in regards to the, to the annotated bibliographies and whatnot. But I think there's also an opportunity to have the cybersecurity skills journal folks help support you, and especially students that want to get some more research experience. And then in terms of places where students might be able to present some of the stuff that they're doing, Lori, I would encourage you to think about, and everybody on the call. So the National Cyber Watch Center runs the annual Community College Cyber Summit. And although community college is in the title, it was primarily created to provide a venue for community college cybersecurity educators to come together and present and network. And there's a whole student track, and there's a strong student presence there. And it's a great opportunity for students to get practice presenting, right? There's a big part of the ambassadors program, right, is learning about phishing and then having to, create a presentation and present. And, and conferences can also be a great way for students to get some experience to showcase what they're doing. And so I encourage you, I put in the Zoom group chat, another shameless plug there for our Community College Cyber Summit. And it's May 23rd through 25th. We've had to postpone it twice because of COVID now. And it's at our host institution, Sinclair Community College in Dayton, Ohio. And it's a great track for students. There's a lot of interesting things that go on. So thanks for letting me plug that stuff there, Lori.
Of course.
Let's see if looks like I had another question while folks are typing stuff up for you. And you mentioned GWI, a broadband provider, and you mentioned Tyler Corporation. I was curious, I'm not being from, Portland, Maine, or, even New England, so GWI is a broadband provider. What's Tyler Corporation do? And what are some of the other?
Tyler Tech.
I'm sorry,
Yeah,
Tyler Tech. I apologize.
Tyler Technologies. No, Tyler Technologies is it's actually a Texas-based company, but it has an office in Maine, and it does IT solutions. We also have Tilson Solutions, which is another IT solutions company that has a lot of our students as interns. We work with LL Bean and in their technology offices. We work with WEX, which is a insurance-based company. We've got IDEX, which is a veterinary company that has technology, brings vaccinations and other technologies into being into the marketplace, and highly technical. So, it's really interesting that Maine is growing pretty rapidly, especially the Portland area, for information technology. And a lot of it is that I think the governor has done quite a bit to make it a great incubator. We've got a number of business incubators, and we've got quite a bit of state level investment in companies coming to Maine and providing work for our workers that transitions away from hospitality and grows our manufacturing and information technology.
I see. Thank you for that. Typing away here, answering some questions. Let's see. Where can we learn about real examples of success?
So can you say more about real examples of success? As
Good
far
question.
as you can talk to the students who got hired. We had 2 students that graduated and immediately got hired. Another student, I probably should have had the students on. Another student who was federal work study and didn't have anything cyber on his resume had more than 4 job offerings, and a lot pointed to the fact that he had experience in cyber and presentation skills from the cybersecurity ambassadors. So, we've had one of the students that was a pilot return and do a full internship this year. So the fact that they wanted to come back, I think, speaks volumes. I have right now 12 students for 4 positions for spring. So those are the evidence that it seems to be successful and that students want to participate. Is that
He followed up and said case studies.
case studies? So,
Yeah.
so that's a great idea. I hadn't thought about it. So do you think there would be an interest in publishing case studies about cybersecurity ambassadors? And what kind of, I would be interested in thoughts about how we would frame that from the perspective of the client or from the students.
I'll let the person who asked follow
It's a
up.
great idea. I hadn't
It
thought about
is.
it.
It is. Yeah, and perhaps it could be, you know, a formal case. So it also could just be a little more informal, right? So Q&A that you know, record via video, right? And make available, sort of tell the story, right? That certainly would allow you to promote your program, attract new ambassadors, but also, you know, help others learn about the elements of your program that were successful in an easy to digest format, right?
Certainly.
So he followed up and said, just trying to use your experience is what his follow-up was. So
Well, and you know, to be honest with you, the getting the funding part, it does take quite a bit of effort, and that's gotten in the way of me having time to get the IRB stuff done and get the research in flight. So I think that the learnings I have is that it probably takes more than one faculty member if you want to get the research done quicker.
and you mentioned you made some comment about people being better at grants than you, but NSF grants are very, very hard to get, very competitive, and you know, and very rigorous just process and getting all the elements together. So you know, for what that's worth.
I appreciate that. You know, and I feel pretty good that we've, you know, so far we've been able to tin cup, you know, about $75,000 for the 3-year support. So that's nothing to sneeze at, and we're very appreciative.
Yeah, of course. Well, great. Well, thank you very much, Lori, for your presentation and the good work you're doing and the difference you're
Thank you.
making in Maine, and for submitting to our innovations program. And thanks to all of our participants and for the questions and for showing up today. And be sure to check your inboxes for future webcast invitations and links to today's recording, and which includes the presentation slide deck. And thank you for all you are doing to keep yourself, your families, and others safe and healthy. And we'll see you next time. Take care.
Thank you so much. Bye now.
Bye-bye.